I have a long history with Final Fantasy 1. Which of course does not necessarily mean that I like it. I'm a 90s kid after all, and yeah, it certainly does have a special soft spot in my old wrinkly heart. But that doesn't really say much. I have a soft spot for Bubsy 3D for goodness sake, and you don't hear anybody praising that game. And neither will I, it sucks. This game, however, it doesn't quite suck in the exact same way. It's rough, it's janky, but somehow it's still playable. Some might even call it enjoyable. There are some glaring issues keeping this from being a masterpiece, but I don't really think Square was quite aiming for a masterpiece yet. I think they were aiming more for good. And good is what we got. Serviceable even. Now, before we get too deep into this, I did grow up with the NES version, and yeah, that version is something. Between the super primitive gameplay, the single save slot, and whatever forbidden coding ritual is happening under the hood. That game always felt like it was being held together by duct tape, hope, and some developer whispering sweet nothings into the cartridge's ear. So as a kid, I never really gave it a fair shot, not until the Game Boy Advance and the PSP versions of the game that I actually started to appreciate it some more. But now we got the Pixel Remaster, and this finally felt like a good time to sit down and properly play through it. Now listen, if you notice me leveling up a little too fast, if you notice that I have a suspicious amount of money, mind your business. We're here for a good time, not for a long time. Also yes, before anyone calls it out, I played this game on the Switch, and life sometimes just ain't how you'd like it to be, so when you see a giant Movavi watermark show up on the screen, shut up, no you didn't. Subscription plans are temporary, but being cheap is eternal. Right away, before there's even a real story, the game lets you build your party. And naturally we have Noob, Nub, Nob, and Nib. And this is the real reason people still love this game. This class system actually kinda rules. The fighter has a big sword, big armor, no thoughts, head empty. The thief, I gotta be honest with you, this guy is rough. Like, why did I pick you? Kinds of rough. Black Mage is absolutely iconic. Not only does he delete enemies immediately, but just look at that design. That is an iconic design right there. White Mage, your insurance policy. Just bring one. Please?
Pretty please.
The Red Mage can do a little bit of everything, just doesn't get too much access to the really good equipment and magic, but overall, yeah, he's pretty sweet. Dude gets a thumbs up. The Monk starts off weak, but he ends the game committing federal crimes with his bare hands. He delivers on hands. And the best part is, express shipping. Regardless of what class you pick, the story will play out exactly the same, but the experience of getting between those story beats, that's gonna be completely different every time. That freedom is what carries this entire thing. Here's something I really like, is gonna be in the looks of the game. The Pixel Remaster in particular looks great. It's clean, it's colorful, and surprisingly cozy. The dungeons pop, the environments are memorable, and this whole game has this really simple charm to it. Even the NES version with its jank and all still has a weirdly comfy atmosphere. Like, yeah, it's probably gonna break at any given second, but it's trying its best. Unfortunately though, we gotta talk about the elephant in the room, and yeah, it's gonna be the story. Because let me tell ya, it's basic. You spawn into existence holding 4 crystals. There's no explanation, there's no context, we're just running on good vibes. We vibe right into town where the king tells us, hey, so like, this dude named Garland, he kidnapped my daughter? Could you go beat him up for me and I'll build you a bridge. So yeah, you walk north for like 12 seconds, you fight Garland and you absolutely destroy him. Yup. Cake. So the king builds us a bridge and the game finally opens up and you get to see where the NES put all of its budget. Well, the game sorta opens up, because from here, the structure becomes extremely obvious. You go to a town, you fix a problem, you get an item, you unlock the next area, and you most likely never return. Every location feels like its own disconnected mini-story, which kinda makes sense for the era, particularly because Dragon Quest 1 or 2 were the blueprint, but compared to later Final Fantasy entries, this feels surprisingly linear. And to be honest, even after you get the airship, things don't really open up as much as I remembered. Teenage me remembered this game becoming some huge open world adventure once you got the airship, but on my most recent playthrough, I discovered nope, we're still in a hallway. But, speaking of the actual sequence of events of this game, the story actually gets really silly when you start talking about it. So first, we open up with the king gaslighting us into solving his family problems for free. We beat up this Garland dude in like 2 minutes, and just to remind you kids, crime doesn't pay. Then after that, the game becomes some fantasy fetch quest. You find the crown, you give it to some imp, you kill him immediately afterwards, he drops an eyeball, which is disgusting by the way, and you shove it into the face of an old lady. She then gives you a potion, you use that potion to wake some kid up, that kid gives you some key, the key gives you TNT, and naturally you use that TNT to blow up an entire landmass. Because apparently, as Warriors of Lights, we are also domestic terrorists. Eventually though, the game stops pretending you know where to go and just starts throwing transportation methods at you. You find some crescent-shaped island full of old dudes. Perhaps it's a retirement home? Anyway, these old people give you a canoe. You take the canoe to the north, you do your thing, you find some glowing rock lying around. Apparently this glow implies that it's magical or something. I don't know. You should perhaps ask your local mechanic. Then, you take this magic rock to some random tile in the desert and boom, you have a flying boat. What more could you ask for, honestly? Now, you do have this new airship which gives you access to the rest of the game, and in particular, it gives you access to my favorite part of this game. You go into some hole in the ground and you find the giant dragon. This legendary creature though, he's got one mortal enemy. One thing he fears above everything else. And do you know what that is? That's right. It's a rat. Not some evil rat. Not a demonic rat. It's just simply a rat. And this rat mortifies, terrifies the dragon that he sends you to do its dirty work by killing it and bringing the tail back as proof of the murder. So naturally, that's exactly what you do. After you bring him the rat's tail, the dragon basically digivolves your entire party. We have the fighter becomes the warrior, which the dude somehow gets taller and shorter at the same time, but he can use some low-level white magic. The monk becomes the black belt, which to be honest I'm not really sure what changed here, but look at him. This man is ready to party. Yeah. The white mage becomes a white wizard, which is more spells, more healing, and premium healthcare packages unlocked. The red mage becomes a red wizard. He gets access to stronger magic and equipments, just not the best of the best, which is why he kind of falls off a little bit, but he's still pretty busted though. The thief becomes a ninja, which is the glow up of the game. This guy hits like a bazillion times, he dodges really well, and he can use a little bit of black magic. You know, he's not a bad pick. The black mage becomes the black wizard. Stat-wise, he's whatever, he's chillin', but design-wise, like, my goodness, he looks worse. Look at the tiny little shadow wizard, and now look at the upgrade. This looks so much worse. So I'm sorry, dude. If there was a way for me to keep him as a little wizard, I'd be happy with it. But you know what? The coolest part about this whole thing is that all of it is optional. You can just ignore the dragon and finish the game anyway. You'll miss some spells and some upgrades, but the game will let you just do it, which is pretty sweet in my opinion. From here though, you're basically just hunting down the last of the two bosses. One of them went on vacation under the sea, and for that one we'll need a tiny fairy to help us breathe underwater. She's got this technology called an oxygen tank. The other guy literally ran away to the sky. My man saw us coming and he tried to leave the planet entirely, but unfortunately for him, we TP'd up there somehow, we bully him, we take his lunch money, and we move on. And maybe this is because I was horrifically overleveled, but man, the bosses in this game were super easy. Like, a little too easy. It almost felt like the game's true challenge is just surviving the dungeon itself with your patience still intact, because once you actually reach the boss, they're usually dead like in 3 to 4 turns. Even the rematches during the final dungeon barely feel stronger. Eventually, we restore the crystals and the game suddenly goes, cool, now go back in time and fight that Garland guy again. Alrighty then, time travel's a thing, so I guess we get to go back and punch Garland one more time. Neat! And now here we are at the grand finale. What does this game have waiting for us? That's right, our final insect to step on. To be fair though, Garland is a little bit harder than the other bosses, but that's not really saying much. That's like saying the cricket I stepped on today had a slightly crunchier texture than the cockroach I stepped on yesterday. Like, yeah, there's technically a difference. What with the exoskeleton, the length of the legs, the shape of the... Wait, where was I going with this? Oh yeah. And then the game basically ends by telling you, congratulations, none of this had ever happened. Alrighty, sure. And here's the thing, the real appeal to this game. You don't really play this game for the story, you play it for the freedom. You can run 4 fighters, 3 fighters, plus 1 white mage, that's a little bit more responsible. You can run 2 white mages only, or you can go solo monk. You can pretty much do whatever team comp you really want, and that makes each run feel completely different based on your setup. That's the real shine of this game, that's the hook. So, is this game perfect? Absolutely not. Is it important though? Yes, 100%. Without this game, there is no Final Fantasy VII, Final Fantasy X, or even Final Fantasy VIII. None of those heavy hitters exist without this weird little experiment laying the groundwork first. So, this game is the wheel that got things turning. That way, the rest of the series could eventually fly like a wheel that flies. Like, comment, and subscribe. Also, by the way, the next game won't be having the Mojave thing on it. Okay, thanks. Bye! Years ago, when I was but a young buck, discovering the wonders and horrors of the internet, circa 2008, I would spend countless hours downloading ROMs and emulators so I could experience the classics of gaming history for myself. Most of the time, these games were normal. But one night, I found something that I was never meant to see. Buried deep within the pages of a shady ROM site, there was a strange file simply titled Final Fantasy I Hanuted. At first, I assumed the uploader had merely misspelled the word haunted, but something about this felt off. Who or what was Hanuted? Despite a strange feeling forming in the pit of my stomach, curiosity got the better of me. I downloaded that ROM and booted it up using my emulator. At first, everything seemed normal, but when the title screen appeared, I immediately noticed something extremely horrifying. The normally white text was now a dark red, resembling blood. And even stranger still, the new game option was completely missing. The only option remaining was continue. This confused me greatly, as I had never played a ROM such as this before in my life. With trembling hands, I selected continue. The moment I pressed A, a loud distorted scream erupted from my speakers, causing me to nearly fall out of my chair and soil my nappies. I should have stopped there, but I didn't. A horror-themed version of Final Fantasy I sounded awesome to young me. The game loaded into the beginning area as though it were a fresh save. My party consisted of a warrior named Fern, a thief named Earl, a red mage named Abul, and a monk named Rob. At first, nothing seemed unusual, but the moment I entered Cornelia, I noticed something deeply unsettling. Every NPC in the game was referring to me by my real name. Not the characters' names, no, but mine. One villager approached my character and said, "Good morning, Bobbert." Another simply said, "You shouldn't have come here, Bobbert." At this point, I was spooked beyond belief, and I had to change my diaper again before continuing onward. Still, against my better judgment, I continued onward to speak with the king. But the king's dialogue was different. Instead of his normal speech, he just stared directly outward from his throne and said, "Please, do not go to the abandoned castle up north. If you go there, he will kill us all." I felt a cold chill run down my spine. This wasn't in the original game. But thanks to my years of experience with Final Fantasy I, I knew exactly where I needed to go. I would go north, to Garland. The castle was entirely silent upon entering. The music was completely gone. There were no random encounters, no sound, just silence. I took a couple of steps, and I reached Garland. But instead of his normal dialogue, he said something that made my blood run cold. "You did not heed my warnings, and for such insolence, you will die, Bobbert from Drury Lane." I froze. How did Garland know my address? I don't remember typing it anywhere. At this point, I knew there was only one thing left for me to do. I had to beat up Garland before he could use this knowledge against me in the real world. The battle began. But unfortunately my party was only level 1, so one by one, Garland struck each of my characters down for 9,999 damage. First, Fern died, followed by Earl. Then Abul died, and finally Rob slipped into the cold embrace of death. I watched helplessly as my entire party was annihilated before my eyes, but instead of a game over screen, the game switched to something that was extremely spooky. A hyper-realistic 8-bit image of Garland appeared on the screen. Blood was pouring endlessly from the voids of his eyes. His mouth, it stretched unnaturally wide into a disgusting, hideous smile. This smile was not a regular 8-bit smile either. It was a hyper-realistic smile. I could even see some of the food stuck between his teeth. This image slowly began zooming towards the screen as the distorted boss music played in reverse. I could swear that Garland was trying to crawl out of my monitor. In a panic, I immediately jumped to unplug my computer from the wall, and the screen finally went black. I've never played Final Fantasy I again since that night. However, it seems my nightmare was only beginning, because earlier today, I found something eerie inside my mailbox. It was a Garland plushie with blood-soaked eyes. I put it on my nightstand for decoration.